Have you ever wondered why happiness seems so fleeting? Why do some people stay calm and joyful even when life is full of struggles, while others feel overwhelmed by the smallest challenges? Can we truly learn to stay happy in every situation, no matter what life throws at us? These questions touch the core of our existence, don't they? Imagine this. Two people lose their jobs on the same day. One falls into despair, feeling lost and broken. The other, while shocked and uncertain, calmly decides to view it as an opportunity to start fresh. How can two people in the same situation respond so differently? What secret does the second person hold? In this video, we'll uncover timeless wisdom from Buddhism to help you cultivate unshakable happiness in every moment of your life. But before we begin, welcome to Wisdom Woven, a channel where ancient teachings meet modern life, offering practical advice for inner peace and growth. There are so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% of viewers have subscribed. Don't miss out on these valuable insights. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more meaningful content to you. Let's grow this journey together. Happiness, as Buddhism teaches, isn't about avoiding pain or chasing pleasure. It's about understanding the nature of our minds and finding peace within. The Buddha said, "Suffering exists, and so does the path to freedom." This profound insight isn't just philosophical, it's deeply practical. Many of our struggles stem from resistance, wishing things were different than they are. When we resist life's natural flow, we create tension. But when we learn to accept and adapt, we open the door to lasting joy. Take a moment to reflect. How often do we cling to fleeting pleasures, expecting them to bring permanent happiness? Buddhism reminds us that true joy doesn't come from external things, but from cultivating a balanced and mindful approach to life. Stay with us as we explore how you can build inner resilience and radiate happiness no matter what challenges arise. This is just the beginning of a transformative journey to a more joyful you, the root of all suffering and how to overcome it. In the stillness of a quiet mind, the Zen master asks, "What is the cause of your suffering?" Many will answer with the obvious: illness, loss, disappointment. Yet, these are but surface-level symptoms. The true cause runs much deeper, beneath the surface, like the roots of a tree hidden in the soil. When we understand the root, we can uproot the suffering itself. Buddhism teaches that the root of all suffering is craving. Yes, craving. It sounds simple, but it is powerful. This craving is not just for material things, but for experiences, emotions, and even for the way we wish our life would be. We crave pleasure, we crave control, and often, we crave permanence in a world that is ever-changing. Think about it. How often do we find ourselves upset because things didn't go as planned? A job we didn't get, a relationship that ended, a goal we didn't achieve. The Buddha called this the three poisons of life: craving, aversion, and ignorance. These poisons cloud our minds and keep us stuck in cycles of suffering. The Buddhist teachings are not about escaping life, but about understanding it deeply. He saw that suffering arises when we try to hold on to things that are always changing. Life is like a river. If you try to grasp the water, it slips through your fingers. But if you learn to flow with it, you find peace. When we crave what is fleeting, we inevitably suffer when it slips away. Take a moment to consider your own life. Where are you clinging? Maybe it's to an idea of what success should look like, or the expectation that people will always treat you the way you want. Perhaps it's the belief that happiness comes from material wealth or status. These cravings, when left unchecked, will only lead to more dissatisfaction. The way to overcome this suffering is not by fighting against our desires, but by understanding them. When we realize that craving is at the root of our suffering, we can begin to let go. This doesn't mean we stop enjoying life's pleasures, but we no longer depend on them for our happiness. We begin to see that true peace comes from within, not from external sources. Buddha's path to freedom is the path of wisdom, ethics, and meditation. The wisdom to understand the nature of craving, the ethics to live in a way that reduces harm to ourselves and others, in the meditation to calm the mind and see things clearly. When we develop these three aspects, we begin to free ourselves from the cycle of craving and suffering. But how do we apply this wisdom in everyday life? It starts with mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present, of observing our thoughts without judgment. When we are mindful, we begin to notice when we are craving something, whether it's a moment of pleasure or the avoidance of discomfort. We can catch these cravings before they take root and steer our actions in a way that leads to true peace. For example, when faced with a difficult situation, rather than reacting out of craving or aversion, we pause and breathe. We observe the situation without attachment. We might feel sadness, anger, or disappointment, but we don't allow ourselves to be swept away by these feelings. Instead, we acknowledge them and then let them go. We don't have to hold on to them. This is the power of mindfulness. It gives us the space to choose how we respond. Let's look at a simple story. Imagine a man who is walking through a forest. He comes across a thorny bush, and his first instinct is to push through it to continue on his path. But the thorns tear at his skin, causing pain. Now, he has a choice. He can either complain about the pain and continue struggling, or he can step back, observe the situation, and decide to find a way around the bush. The first choice keeps him stuck in suffering, but the second leads him to a peaceful resolution. This is how we must approach life's difficulties, by seeing them clearly and choosing not to hold on to them. The Zen master smiles and says, "Just as a tree grows without trying, you too can grow in wisdom by letting go of your attachments." Every moment is an opportunity to practice letting go, to let go of the craving that causes suffering. But remember, this isn't about being passive or indifferent. It's about flowing with life, not against it. Another key teaching in Buddhism is the practice of non-attachment. We often believe that the more we attach ourselves to something, whether it's a person, an object, or a goal, the happier we will be. But this attachment only creates dependency. We begin to tie our happiness to the things we love, and when they are threatened, we experience pain. True freedom comes when we learn to love without attachment. When we can appreciate the beauty of life without trying to possess it, we experience a deeper, more lasting joy. We begin to see life as a gift that we can enjoy fully, without the need to control it. In daily life, this means letting go of the idea that we can control everything. We can control our actions, but we cannot control others or the world around us. When we try to do so, we create stress and anxiety. Instead, we focus on controlling our reactions. We choose peace, no matter what life brings. This is the practice of equanimity, a mind that remains calm and balanced in the face of both pleasure and pain. The Zen master pauses and reflects. To overcome suffering, you must understand the root, and then release your grip. Craving, aversion, and ignorance bind you. The moment you see this truth, you begin to untangle yourself from the web of suffering. Let go of the need for things to be a certain way. Embrace life as it is. This teaching isn't just for monks or spiritual seekers. It is for all of us. In fact, the Buddha himself was a man who faced the same struggles we do. He experienced sickness, loss, and disappointment. But through his deep understanding of the nature of suffering, he found a way to transcend it. And so can we. As you move through your day, ask yourself, what am I clinging to? What am I craving? When you feel a sense of dissatisfaction, take a deep breath and notice what you're attached to. Is it a desire for something you don't have? Is it a fear of losing something you cherish? By becoming aware of these attachments, you can begin to let them go and free yourself from unnecessary suffering. This doesn't mean you won't feel pain. Pain is a part of life. But when you stop clinging to things, the pain no longer has the power to control you. You become the observer, not the reactor. You can feel sadness, but you do not need to suffer because of it. Buddhism teaches that suffering is not the problem. Our attachment to suffering is. When we stop identifying with our pain and allow ourselves to feel without clinging, we move closer to the peace we seek. This is the path to true happiness, the happiness that is not dependent on circumstances, but on the understanding that everything, including ourselves, is impermanent. The Zen master bows gently. As you walk this path, remember, the root of suffering is craving. The way to freedom is to see through it, to let it go, and to flow with the river of life. The power of mindfulness in transforming adversity. In life, obstacles are inevitable. Every person will face hardship, loss, disappointment, and pain. But how we respond to these difficulties makes all the difference. The Buddha taught that while we cannot avoid suffering, we can learn to transform our relationship with it. One of the most powerful tools for this transformation is mindfulness. What is mindfulness? It's simply the practice of being fully aware in the present moment. It sounds simple, but it can completely change the way we experience life. Mindfulness is like a mirror. It reflects everything we think, feel, and do. When we are mindful, we see things clearly for what they are, without judgment or distortion. This clarity allows us to respond to life's challenges with wisdom, rather than reacting with fear, anger, or frustration. In everyday life, we often get caught up in our thoughts. Our minds race with worries about the future or regrets about the past. We become lost in our emotions, identifying ourselves with anger, sadness, or anxiety. Mindfulness helps us step back and observe our thoughts and feelings from a distance. Instead of getting swept away by them, we simply notice them without attachment. Imagine you are sitting in a crowded room. The noise is overwhelming, and your mind begins to race, thinking about everything that needs to be done. The thoughts swirl around like a storm. But if you practice mindfulness, you can acknowledge those thoughts, let them pass, and return to the present moment. You don't need to be swept away by the chaos. You can find peace amidst it. Mindfulness teaches us that we are not our thoughts or emotions. We are the awareness that observes them. This shift in perspective is transformative. When we understand that our emotions are temporary, we can allow them to pass without being controlled by them. Let's take a deeper look at how mindfulness works. When something challenging happens, like receiving bad news or facing a difficult decision, our natural reaction is to feel overwhelmed or anxious. Our minds may start racing, jumping to conclusions, or imagining worst-case scenarios. This is our default response, shaped by years of habit. But mindfulness interrupts that habit. It allows us to take a step back, breathe, and observe our reactions. In that moment, we can choose how to respond, rather than simply reacting out of fear or impulse. By pausing and becoming aware of our thoughts, we can make more conscious choices. For example, think of a time when you were angry at someone. Perhaps they said something hurtful, or they didn't do something you expected. Your initial reaction might have been to get upset, to lash out, or to hold on to that anger. But with mindfulness, you can notice the anger rising inside you without acting on it. You can observe it, breathe through it, and let it go. This is the power of mindfulness. This doesn't mean suppressing or ignoring our emotions. It's not about pretending to be happy when we're sad, or pretending to be calm when we're angry. Instead, mindfulness teaches us to be honest with ourselves about what we're feeling. It invites us to acknowledge our emotions without judgment. One of the key aspects of mindfulness is self-compassion. When we experience hardship or failure, our natural tendency may be to criticize ourselves. I should have done better, we think. I'm not good enough. But mindfulness teaches us to be kind to ourselves. Instead of harsh judgment, we practice acceptance. We acknowledge our mistakes, learn from them, and move forward without condemnation. Buddhism teaches that everything is impermanent: our emotions, our thoughts, and even the situations we face. By practicing mindfulness, we learn to flow with life's changes, rather than resisting them. Mindfulness helps us embrace the present moment, no matter what it brings. It is the key to transforming adversity into wisdom. Consider the example of a calm lake. When the water is still, the reflections are clear and peaceful. But when the wind blows, the surface becomes turbulent, and the reflection is distorted. Similarly, when our minds are agitated by fear, anger, or anxiety, our perception of reality becomes distorted. We no longer see things as they are, but through the lens of our emotions. Mindfulness is like the stillness of the lake. It helps us calm the turbulent waters of our minds, allowing us to see things clearly again. When we practice mindfulness, we cultivate inner peace, which remains steady even in the face of life storms. How do we begin this practice of mindfulness? It starts with the breath. The breath is always with us, a constant companion that anchors us to the present moment. When we feel overwhelmed, anxious, or distracted, we can turn our attention to the breath. Simply noticing the sensation of the air entering and leaving our body can bring us back to the present, calming our mind and body. Try this now. Take a deep breath. Inhale slowly, feeling the air fill your lungs. Then exhale gently, releasing any tension in your body. As you breathe, notice how your mind begins to quiet. This simple practice is the foundation of mindfulness. As you continue to practice, you'll begin to notice that your reactions to life's challenges become less intense. You'll still experience emotions like anger or sadness, but they won't overwhelm you. You'll be able to observe them, let them pass, and return to a state of calm. Mindfulness also teaches us to be present with others. In our busy lives, it's easy to rush through conversations, distracted by our phones or our own thoughts. But mindfulness invites us to be fully present when we interact with others. By listening deeply, without judgment, we create deeper connections and show respect for those around us. In relationships, mindfulness helps us respond with kindness and compassion, rather than reacting from a place of fear or insecurity. When we are mindful, we can see the needs of others more clearly, and we can offer our support without being overwhelmed by our own emotions. Mindfulness isn't just a practice, it's a way of life. It's about being present in every moment, no matter how small. Whether we're eating, walking, or working, mindfulness helps us bring awareness to what we're doing. This attention to the present moment brings peace, clarity, and joy. When we cultivate mindfulness, we stop chasing after happiness. Instead, we realize that happiness is always available to us, right here, right now. It's not something we need to find or achieve. It's a quality we can cultivate within ourselves by being fully present and accepting whatever comes our way. So, the next time you face a challenge, remember that mindfulness is your tool for transformation. Instead of reacting with frustration or fear, take a deep breath, observe your thoughts, and choose your response. This practice will lead you to deeper wisdom and lasting happiness. In the next part, we will explore how impermanence, the understanding that everything is always changing, can help us embrace life with greater peace and joy. But for now, remember, mindfulness is not just a practice, it's a way of being. It is the key to transforming adversity into a source of inner strength, embracing impermanence for inner joy. In this world, everything changes. The seasons shift, the tides ebb and flow, the sun rises and sets. It is in the nature of all things to change. Yet, how often do we resist change, desperately clinging to what we know? We fear loss, we fear the unknown, and in this fear, we hold on tight. But true peace is found when we embrace change, not as something to fear, but as a natural and beautiful part of life. This is the teaching of impermanence. Everything in our lives, whether it's our emotions, our possessions, or even our relationships, is temporary. Nothing stays the same forever. But that's not something to mourn, it's something to celebrate. When we understand that nothing is permanent, we free ourselves from the chains of attachment. We are no longer enslaved to the idea that things must stay exactly as they are for us to be happy. Take a moment to think about it. How often do we feel frustrated because things aren't turning out the way we expect? How often do we feel disappointment when life doesn't go as planned? If only we could realize that the discomfort we feel comes from trying to hold on to something that is already changing, we would save ourselves from unnecessary suffering. In the teachings of the Buddha, impermanence is one of the 3 marks of existence. Everything is transient. Our feelings are transient. Our thoughts are transient. Our bodies are transient. The people in our lives, even the ones we love most dearly, are transient. This doesn't mean we should stop caring. It simply means that we can enjoy the present moment without the burden of expecting it to last forever. When we begin to see change not as a threat, but as an invitation to live fully in the now, we begin to taste true freedom. For example, think of a tree shedding its leaves in autumn. It does not resist the change. It allows the leaves to fall, knowing that in time, new ones will grow. In the same way, we too must learn to let go of the things that no longer serve us, trusting that new blessings will come in their own time. Sometimes, we hold on to the past. We wish things could go back to how they were. But in clinging to the past, we miss the present. We close our hearts to the opportunities around us, simply because we're too busy looking backward. What would happen if we allowed ourselves to truly experience the present moment, free from the weight of past regrets and future worries? One of the most profound ways we can embrace impermanence is through mindfulness. When we are mindful, we are fully present in whatever we are doing. Whether we are eating, walking, or talking to a friend, we become fully immersed in the experience. We stop wishing for it to be different, and instead, we enjoy it for exactly what it is. Impermanence teaches us to let go of expectations and to be fully present with what is unfolding before us. Think of a moment in your life when you felt completely at peace. Perhaps it was a moment of stillness in nature, or a quiet evening spent with loved ones. In that moment, you were not thinking about what had happened before, nor were you worrying about what might happen next. You were simply present, accepting what was, just as it was. This is the essence of embracing impermanence, allowing life to flow as it is, without resistance. When we accept the impermanence of all things, we begin to find joy in the simple and fleeting moments. Each moment becomes precious, because we know it won't last forever. This understanding helps us to value the little things. A smile from a stranger, the warmth of the sun on our skin, the sound of birds singing at dawn. These are the moments that, when we fully appreciate them, bring us lasting happiness. One of the great lessons of impermanence is that it helps us to cultivate gratitude. When we recognize that nothing lasts forever, we learn to appreciate what we have while we have it. We no longer take things for granted. We savor the good moments, knowing they are precious and fleeting. We cherish the people in our lives, not because we own them, but because we are lucky enough to share this brief moment together. It is also important to understand that impermanence applies to our pain as well. When we experience difficulty, it can feel as though the pain will last forever. But just as joy is fleeting, so too is sorrow. This is the beauty of impermanence. It reminds us that our struggles, too, will pass. This understanding doesn't make the pain disappear, but it does give us hope. It allows us to bear our burdens with patience, knowing that they are not permanent. When we are caught in moments of suffering, it's easy to think that the pain is never-ending. We may feel like we are trapped in a storm, unable to find shelter, but by remembering the truth of impermanence, we can remind ourselves that storms eventually clear. The rain will stop, the clouds will part, and the sun will shine once again. In every moment of difficulty, remember, this too shall pass. Another way to embrace impermanence is by letting go of our attachments to outcomes. When we become attached to a specific outcome, we are setting ourselves up for disappointment. Life is unpredictable. We cannot control everything, and when we try to force things to happen in a certain way, we create suffering for ourselves. Instead, we must learn to release our attachment to specific outcomes and trust that life will unfold as it is meant to. This doesn't mean we don't have goals or dreams. It simply means that we can pursue them with an open heart without the need to control every step. By embracing impermanence, we open ourselves to a deeper sense of freedom. We stop fighting against the flow of life, and instead, we go with it. This freedom allows us to experience joy, even in the midst of change. It allows us to appreciate the beauty of each moment, knowing that it is unique and irreplaceable. To live fully, we must learn to embrace impermanence in all its forms. When we do this, we no longer fear change. We accept it as a natural part of life. We find peace in the knowledge that nothing is permanent, and in this peace, we discover true happiness. We are no longer shackled by our desire for things to stay the same. Instead, we learn to flow with the rhythm of life, enjoying each moment as it comes. This is the path to inner joy. By embracing impermanence, we release ourselves from the chains of attachment and allow ourselves to live fully in the present. In doing so, we discover the true meaning of happiness, not in things, not in circumstances, but in our ability to embrace life as it is, with all its changes and uncertainties. The art of detachment, freedom from emotional burdens, to live in the world, yet remain unaffected by its constant changes. Is this possible? Can we truly experience life without being weighed down by our attachments? The answer, according to Buddhism, is yes. The art of detachment is the key to freedom, peace, and lasting happiness. It is not about renouncing the world or becoming cold-hearted. Rather, it is about learning to let go of what weighs us down, emotional burdens, attachments, and desires that cloud our minds. Imagine you are holding a heavy stone in your hand. At first, you may not feel its weight, but as time passes, Your arm grows tired, and the stone begins to feel heavier. You start to wonder how much longer you can hold it. Eventually, you realize that letting go is the only way to free yourself from its weight. Attachments work in the same way. Initially, they might not seem harmful, but over time, they become burdens, pulling us down and clouding our clarity. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means allowing ourselves to experience life fully, without clinging to it. It means accepting the fleeting nature of everything: people, emotions, possessions, even thoughts. Just as the wind blows and then passes, just as clouds come and go, so too do our desires, fears, and attachments. The Buddha taught that everything is impermanent, and when we learn to let go of our attachments, we release the emotional burdens that cause us suffering. The question arises, how do we detach? The first step is to recognize our attachments. We must become aware of the things, people, or desires we cling to. These attachments can be subtle, hidden deep within our minds. We might not even realize how much they influence our thoughts and actions. Perhaps it is the attachment to a particular outcome, wanting things to go a certain way, controlling the circumstances around us. Or maybe it is the attachment to a person, wanting their approval, fearing their rejection. These attachments, whether large or small, tie us to the world in a way that prevents us from experiencing true freedom. Once we recognize our attachments, we can begin to practice non-attachment. This doesn't mean we stop caring about people or things, but we learn not to depend on them for our happiness. We allow things to come and go naturally, without holding on too tightly. This practice of detachment frees us from the constant craving and clinging that creates suffering. It brings peace, because we no longer feel the need to control everything around us. Consider this. You are sitting by a stream. The water is flowing gently, carrying leaves and twigs along with it. You could try to grab hold of each leaf, but if you do, you will find yourself fighting the flow, struggling with the current. The leaves will slip from your grasp, and the water will keep flowing, regardless of your efforts. But if you simply let go and allow the water to carry the leaves, you remain calm, untroubled by the flow. This is how we must learn to approach life, without grasping at every moment, without holding on to every desire. When we let go, we allow ourselves to flow with the rhythm of life, moving freely and peacefully. Detachment also helps us face the inevitable losses in life. People come and go, situations change, and everything is in constant flux. If we are attached to these fleeting things, we suffer when they are taken away. But when we practice detachment, we learn to appreciate the beauty of each moment, knowing that it is not permanent. We can love deeply without fear of loss, because we understand that the nature of love is to give, not to possess. The Buddha taught that our attachment to the self is one of the greatest causes of suffering. We cling to our identity, our roles, our achievements, our desires, and in doing so, we create a false sense of who we are. But when we release this attachment, we discover that we are not our possessions, our titles, or our past experiences. We are simply the awareness that witnesses all of these things. This realization brings a sense of freedom, as we no longer need to defend or protect a false sense of self. One powerful practice to help us cultivate detachment is meditation. Through meditation, we can observe our thoughts and emotions without becoming entangled in them. We begin to notice the rise and fall of thoughts, just as we observe the passing of clouds. We don't judge or react to these thoughts. We simply let them pass. Over time, this practice helps us detach from the constant chatter of the mind, allowing us to experience a deeper sense of peace and presence. Detachment also teaches us the importance of living in the present moment. Often, we are so attached to the past or the future that we miss the beauty of the present. We dwell on regrets or anxieties, constantly trying to control what has already happened or what is yet to come. But when we learn to let go of these attachments, we are free to experience the present fully. We can enjoy the simple pleasures of life, feeling the warmth of the sun, tasting our food, or sharing a moment of kindness with another, without being distracted by worries or desires. When we practice detachment, we also begin to experience greater compassion. Without the need to protect our own ego or desires, we are free to love others unconditionally. We no longer judge or criticize, because we understand that everyone is on their own journey, struggling with their own attachments. Instead of clinging to our own version of reality, we can embrace the world as it is, with all its imperfections and challenges. This compassion is a natural result of detachment, because when we let go of our own desires, we open ourselves to the needs of others. But detachment does not happen overnight. It is a gradual process, one that requires patience, self-awareness, and mindfulness. Each time we let go of an attachment, we free ourselves a little more. Each time we choose to respond with compassion rather than attachment, we strengthen our inner peace. It is not about being perfect, it is about making progress, one step at a time. In the end, the art of detachment is not about renouncing the world, but about engaging with it in a healthier way. We can live fully, love deeply, and experience joy without becoming ensnared by the things we cling to. We can find happiness in the present moment without needing to control or possess anything. And when we practice detachment, we discover a freedom that brings lasting peace. So, let go of the burdens you carry, release the attachments that weigh you down, and embrace the flow of life with all its impermanence and beauty. In doing so, you will find the freedom to experience true happiness, no matter what the world brings your way. Compassion is the key to happiness. Imagine a world where everyone is kind, not because they expect something in return, but because they understand the power of giving. A world where people share their smiles freely, listen without judgment, and help others without hesitation. Can you picture that? Now, let's bring that thought back to your own life. How often do you show compassion to others? How often do you show it to yourself? In Buddhism, compassion is not just an action. It's a way of being. It's not just something we do for others. It's something we cultivate within ourselves. True compassion arises when we understand that all beings, just like us, seek happiness and wish to avoid suffering. When we recognize this universal truth, it becomes easier to care for others with an open heart, without feeling burdened by their pain. But here's the question: why is compassion so important for our own happiness? The answer lies in the nature of our minds. When we focus only on ourselves, we naturally become caught in the cycle of craving and aversion. We crave what we want and push away what we don't. This creates suffering. But when we turn our attention outward, to the well-being of others, we step outside of that cycle. Compassion frees us from the grip of selfish desires and opens our hearts to a deeper, more lasting happiness. Let's think about this for a moment. When was the last time you did something kind for someone else without expecting anything in return? Maybe it was holding the door open for a stranger, or offering a few words of encouragement to someone who seemed down. It felt good, didn't it? That's because every act of kindness creates a ripple of joy, both for the person you help and for you. Compassion brings peace not just to others, but also to your own heart. The Buddha spoke of metta, or loving kindness, as one of the highest forms of compassion. It's a kind of love that transcends attachment. It's a love that wishes for the happiness and well-being of all beings, without discrimination. This is the kind of compassion we are encouraged to cultivate. It's not about giving to others out of pity or obligation, but about recognizing that, at the deepest level, we are all connected. When one person suffers, we all suffer. When one person is happy, we all share in that happiness. But how do we cultivate this kind of compassion? The first step is to see clearly. Often, we fail to recognize the struggles of others because we're so focused on our own. It's easy to think that everyone's life is as easy as it seems from the outside. But when we take the time to listen, to truly listen, we begin to understand the depth of human suffering and the need for kindness. Every person you meet is facing a battle you know nothing about. Compassion is the recognition that we are all in this together. Another way to cultivate compassion is to start with yourself. This may sound strange, but it's true. You cannot give what you don't have. If you are hard on yourself, if you are constantly criticizing and judging your own actions, how can you offer kindness to others? True compassion begins with self-compassion. When you learn to treat yourself with love and understanding, you naturally begin to extend that same love to others. This doesn't mean allowing yourself to act carelessly or selfishly, but rather offering yourself the same kindness and patience that you would give to a friend. One of the most powerful practices in Buddhism is the metta meditation. This simple yet profound practice involves sending loving kindness to yourself, your loved ones, neutral people, and even those you may have difficulty with. It starts by repeating phrases like, "May I be happy," "May I be healthy," "May I be safe," and gradually expands to others. The more you practice, the more your heart opens. It may feel awkward at first, especially if you are not used to offering kindness to yourself, but over time, it becomes natural, and you begin to see the world through a more compassionate lens. The beauty of compassion is that it doesn't just relieve the suffering of others, it also heals us. Studies have shown that acts of kindness and compassion release feel-good chemicals in our brains, such as oxytocin and serotonin. These are the same chemicals that are released when we receive love and care from others. In other words, when we help others, we help ourselves. This is why compassion is often described as a two-way street. The more we give, the more we receive. Happiness grows not by seeking it directly, but by creating it for others. Another aspect of compassion in Buddhism is karuna, or empathy. Empathy allows us to truly feel the pain of others and understand their situation. It is different from sympathy, which can sometimes create distance, as it positions us as separate from those who are suffering. Empathy, on the other hand, draws us closer, allowing us to connect with others on a deeper level. When we feel someone's pain as our own, we are naturally moved to help, and this helps us develop a more profound sense of shared humanity. However, compassion is not always easy. There are times when it feels draining, especially when we see suffering in the world that we feel powerless to change. But the true practice of compassion is not about fixing everything, it's about being present. Sometimes, all someone needs is a listening ear, a kind word, or a simple gesture of support. We don't always have to solve the problem. Just being there with an open heart can be a powerful act of compassion. And while compassion involves helping others, it also requires boundaries. It's important to recognize that we cannot pour from an empty cup. Taking care of ourselves is an essential part of being able to care for others. If we are constantly giving without replenishing our own energy, we will eventually burn out. Buddhism teaches us the importance of balance. We must nurture ourselves in order to nurture others. This includes setting healthy boundaries and knowing when to say no. Finally, the practice of compassion leads to a deep sense of fulfillment. It may seem paradoxical, but the more we give, the more we have. When we step outside of our own limited view of the world and begin to care for others, we find that our hearts grow larger, our happiness expands, and we become more at peace. This is the essence of true happiness, joy that arises not from grasping but from giving. To sum it up, compassion is the key to unlocking a life of happiness, both for ourselves and for others. It's not just about doing kind things. It's about adopting a compassionate mindset, one that sees beyond ourselves and recognizes the shared humanity in everyone we meet. When we live with compassion, we free ourselves from the prison of self-centeredness, and we open the door to lasting joy and peace. Now, as you move through your day, remember this. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, adds to the great web of compassion that connects us all. Whether it's a smile, a kind word, or simply offering a moment of your time, these acts have the power to transform both your life and the lives of those around you. So, take a step today. Be the source of compassion in the world, and watch how it brings you closer to the happiness you seek. The middle way, balance in every aspect of life. Life is a journey of constant change. Every day, we are pulled in different directions by our desires, our fears, and our distractions. It's easy to become overwhelmed by this constant push and pull. But what if there was a way to find peace in the middle of it all? What if you could experience life with a deep sense of calm, no matter what happens around you? The middle way, a core teaching of Buddhism, offers the key to this inner balance. The middle way is not about extremes. It's about finding a balanced path between the extremes of indulgence and denial. Imagine a tightrope walker. If they lean too far to one side, they will fall. If they lean too far to the other side, they will also fall. But if they stay centered, with attention and presence, they can walk gracefully across. This is the essence of the middle way, staying centered and balanced amidst life's ups and downs. In our daily lives, we often swing between two extremes. On one side, there's the pull to enjoy the pleasures of life, to indulge in food, entertainment, possessions, and desires. On the other side, there's the pull to avoid all enjoyment, believing that detachment and asceticism are the only paths to peace. Both extremes create tension and suffering. The middle way teaches us to neither chase after pleasure nor resist it. Instead, we are encouraged to engage with life mindfully, without attachment. Think about your daily routines. How often do you find yourself overindulging in something, like food, technology, or even work, thinking it will bring happiness? And on the flip side, how often do you deny yourself simple pleasures, thinking that if you just push harder, you'll find true peace? These swings between extremes cause unnecessary stress and dissatisfaction. The middle way teaches that peace lies in moderation, in knowing when to enjoy and when to step back. It's also about finding balance in how we respond to life's challenges. When something difficult happens, it's easy to either react impulsively, driven by emotion, or to shut down completely, avoiding the situation. Both responses are extremes. The middle way encourages us to respond with awareness, taking a moment to center ourselves before acting. It's not about suppressing our feelings or being detached from life. It's about approaching every situation with clarity and balance. One of the simplest ways to practice the middle way is through mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in each moment, without judgment or attachment. When you are mindful, you can experience life as it truly is, without being swept away by distractions or overwhelmed by emotions. Whether you're eating, walking, working, or talking with others, mindfulness helps you stay centered, making it easier to find the balance between effort and ease, between action and rest. This balanced approach to life can be applied in every area, whether it's relationships, work, or personal goals. In relationships, for example, the middle way teaches us to neither cling too tightly to others nor withdraw completely. We are encouraged to engage in healthy, loving relationships that allow for both connection and personal space. In work, the middle way teaches us to find a balance between striving for success and knowing when to let go and rest. It's about not getting caught up in the never-ending cycle of busyness, but also not falling into complacency. The middle way is also a path of wisdom. It asks us to recognize that life is neither black nor white, but full of shades of gray. We are encouraged to make decisions based on our understanding of the present moment, not out of reactionary patterns or blind habit. This wisdom helps us navigate the complexity of life with grace and awareness, knowing that balance is not a destination but an ongoing practice. In Buddhism, the middle way is often referred to as the path that leads to enlightenment. It is through finding balance in every moment that we begin to understand the nature of suffering and how to transcend it. By practicing moderation, we free ourselves from the need for external validation and constant striving. We discover that true happiness is not found in extremes, but in the simple, peaceful moments of life. Consider the example of a river. If the water flows too quickly, it becomes chaotic and dangerous. If it flows too slowly, it stagnates and becomes stagnant. But when the water flows at a steady, balanced pace, it remains clear, calm, and nourishing. Life is like this river. When we find the right balance, we can navigate the currents of life with ease and joy. The middle way also teaches us about the impermanence of all things. Life is in constant motion, and nothing lasts forever. When we grasp too tightly to things, whether they are material possessions, people, or experiences, we suffer because we fail to recognize their temporary nature. By practicing the middle way, we learn to embrace the ebb and flow of life, understanding that everything comes and goes. This awareness helps us find peace even when things are uncertain or difficult. It's important to remember that the middle way is not a rigid set of rules, but a dynamic, flexible approach to life. It requires us to pay attention to our thoughts, emotions, and actions in each moment, adjusting our responses based on what is needed. Sometimes, the middle way means resting and letting go. Other times, it means engaging fully and with effort. The key is to remain present and balanced, knowing that both action and rest are part of a harmonious whole. In daily life, you can begin to practice the middle way by taking small, mindful steps. Start by noticing when you are swinging between extremes, whether in your work, relationships, or personal habits. Are you pushing yourself too hard? Are you avoiding something important out of fear? Ask yourself where balance lies and take steps to restore harmony. As you walk this path, you will find that life becomes simpler, clearer, and more joyful. The middle way invites us to be present in the moment, to find peace in the midst of chaos, and to live in harmony with ourselves and the world around us. Through balance, we unlock the door to true happiness, a happiness that is unshaken by external circumstances and rooted in the wisdom of the present moment. This is the gift of the middle way. It teaches us that happiness is not something to chase, but something to cultivate through awareness, presence, and balance. As you continue on your journey, remember that every step you take toward balance brings you closer to the peace and joy that are already within you. Gratitude as a daily practice of contentment. Gratitude. It is a simple word, but its power is profound. In the bustle of daily life, we often overlook the small gifts that surround us. The sun rising each morning, the food on our table, the air we breathe. All these are blessings. Yet, we rarely stop to notice them. Why? Because we are always looking for something bigger, something more. We chase after success, material wealth, and endless comforts. But in the process, we miss the true treasures of life that are right in front of us. Imagine for a moment that you are holding a small pebble in your hand. If you look at it closely, you can see the tiny lines and cracks that make it unique. Now, imagine the pebble as a moment of gratitude. It is small, but if you look at it long enough, you realize how much it holds. In that small moment, everything you need is already there. Peace, joy, and contentment. This is the power of gratitude. It helps us see the world as it truly is, full of beauty, even in the most ordinary things. But for many, this is not easy. We live in a world that tells us to keep striving, to never be satisfied, to always want more. We are taught that happiness comes from achievements and possessions. But Buddhism teaches us something different. It shows us that true contentment comes not from what we have, but from what we recognize within us and around us. Gratitude, in its purest form, is a practice. It is not something we feel only on special occasions. It is a way of living, a lens through which we view the world. The Buddha spoke of mindful appreciation, a practice of noticing the small, fleeting moments of life and feeling thankful for them. When we are grateful, we shift our focus from what is lacking to what is abundant. To practice gratitude, you do not need to go on a retreat or spend hours in meditation. Start with small moments. When you wake up, feel gratitude for the warmth of your bed. When you drink water, thank it for quenching your thirst. When you speak with someone, appreciate their kindness. It's easy to get caught up in the rush of life and forget to pause. But even in moments of difficulty, gratitude has the power to shift our perspective. Think of a time when you felt overwhelmed, when things seemed to be falling apart. Now, pause and reflect. What good came from that experience? Perhaps it taught you resilience, patience, or compassion. Maybe it led you to new opportunities you hadn't seen before. Gratitude doesn't mean ignoring suffering or pretending that everything is perfect. It means accepting what is, with all its imperfections, and finding value in it. When we practice gratitude, we start to see life as a series of interconnected moments, each contributing to our growth. Even the most painful experiences have something to teach us. Buddhism calls this the practice of right view, seeing the world with clarity, understanding, and acceptance. By cultivating gratitude, we align ourselves with the present moment, rather than constantly chasing after something that may never come. We stop comparing ourselves to others and start appreciating who we are right now. One of the easiest ways to begin a gratitude practice is by keeping a gratitude journal. Each day, write down 3 things you are grateful for. They don't have to be grand. In fact, the smaller, the better. Maybe you're grateful for a warm cup of tea, a kind word from a stranger, or the sound of rain outside your window. Over time, you will begin to notice just how much beauty there is in the world. As we cultivate gratitude, we also learn to be more present. Instead of worrying about the future or dwelling on the past, we focus on what is right in front of us. This brings us into a state of mindfulness where we are fully engaged in the moment. Gratitude and mindfulness go hand in hand. When we are mindful, we are aware of the countless blessings we might otherwise overlook. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to complain? It's almost automatic. When things go wrong, we tend to focus on what we don't have or what is missing. But what happens when we turn that habit around? When we stop complaining and start expressing gratitude, something magical happens. We begin to feel more content, more at peace with ourselves and the world. Gratitude is not just a feeling, it is a mindset. When we choose to see life through the lens of gratitude, we begin to see challenges as opportunities, struggles as lessons, and even setbacks as steps towards something better. This shift in perspective is what allows us to maintain peace and happiness, no matter the circumstances. The Buddha often spoke about satisfaction and how it leads to a peaceful heart. He said that when we are satisfied with what we have, we are no longer driven by endless craving. Gratitude helps us achieve that satisfaction. It reminds us that we are enough, just as we are, with all that we have. It's important to remember that gratitude is a practice of the mind. Our thoughts shape our reality. When we focus on what is good in our lives, we naturally start to feel happier, more at ease. On the other hand, if we focus on what is missing or what isn't working, we create dissatisfaction. It's up to us to choose which thoughts we want to nurture. So, how do we make gratitude a part of our daily lives? First, we must recognize that it is not something that comes automatically. It requires intentionality. It's easy to take things for granted, but to truly appreciate them, we must pause and reflect. Try this simple exercise. The next time you're feeling down or stressed, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what am I grateful for right now? It could be something as simple as your health, the people around you, or the opportunities you have. Focus on that feeling of gratitude and let it fill your heart. You may be surprised at how quickly your mood shifts. As we practice gratitude, we also begin to experience more joy in the little things. We start to see life as a series of gifts, no matter how small they may seem. The Buddha taught that life is fleeting and that nothing lasts forever. By practicing gratitude, we make the most of each moment, appreciating what we have while we have it. Gratitude also opens our hearts to others. When we are grateful for the people in our lives, we naturally want to give back. We become more compassionate, more generous, and more willing to help. The simple act of saying thank you can create deep connections and spread positivity. One of the most powerful aspects of gratitude is that it has a ripple effect. When we express gratitude, we inspire others to do the same. It becomes contagious. Imagine a world where everyone practiced gratitude, where people recognize the value in every moment, no matter how small. The world would be a much more peaceful place. In the end, gratitude is not just about saying thank you, but about living with an open heart, seeing life as a gift, and being thankful for everything that it brings. By making gratitude a daily practice, we open the door to true contentment, a contentment that comes from within and lasts forever. So, take a moment today to reflect on the many blessings in your life. Appreciate them, no matter how small they may seem. And remember, gratitude is a practice. The more you cultivate it, the more you will find happiness and peace, no matter what happens in the world around you. The role of meditation in achieving mental peace. In the stillness of the mind, peace is found. But how often do we allow our minds to remain still? In a world filled with noise and distractions, finding moments of quiet can seem impossible. Yet, meditation offers us a path to that stillness, a way to calm the swirling thoughts that often cloud our minds. The Buddha once said, "Your worst enemy cannot harm you as much as your own unguarded thoughts." Meditation helps guard the mind, guiding us towards clarity, peace, and happiness. Let us take a moment to consider the nature of the mind. It is like a monkey, constantly jumping from thought to thought, never staying in one place for long. This constant movement creates restlessness, making it difficult to find peace. Imagine trying to catch a monkey that is darting through the trees. How can you ever catch it if you are chasing after it with more energy and impatience? The more you chase it, the more it runs. Meditation, however, is different. Instead of chasing the monkey, you sit calmly under the tree. You stop running, and in the stillness, the monkey, too, begins to calm down. This is the power of meditation. It doesn't force the mind into stillness. It allows the mind to naturally come to rest when given the space and time to do so. The practice of meditation in Buddhism is not just about quieting the mind. It is about observing the mind without attachment, without judgment. When we meditate, we step back and watch our thoughts as they come and go. We don't hold on to them, and we don't push them away. We simply let them be. This practice is known as mindfulness, and it is the foundation of meditation. Through mindfulness, we begin to understand the nature of our thoughts. We realize that our thoughts are like clouds in the sky. Sometimes they are dark and heavy. Other times they are light and wispy. But no matter how they appear, they are always temporary. The clouds will pass, and the sky remains clear. Similarly, our thoughts come and go. Some thoughts may bring fear, others may bring joy, but none of them last forever. When we learn to observe our thoughts without getting caught up in them, we find peace. Meditation also helps us connect with the present moment. In our everyday lives, we often dwell in the past or worry about the future. But the present moment is the only moment we truly have. In Buddhism, this is called being in the now. When we meditate, we focus on the present moment, letting go of past regrets and future anxieties. This brings us back to the peace that is always available to us, right here, right now. The power of meditation lies in its ability to change the way we relate to our thoughts and emotions. We begin to see that we are not our thoughts. We are not our emotions. We are the observer of them. This shift in perspective is liberating. No longer do we need to be swept away by every thought and feeling that arises. Instead, we can sit quietly, watching them come and go, like waves on the ocean. When we meditate, we also cultivate compassion. We become kinder to ourselves. We learn to forgive ourselves for past mistakes and let go of guilt. We understand that we, too, are human and that suffering is part of life. Through meditation, we create a safe space within ourselves where we can heal and grow. In this space, we find the peace that we have been searching for. One of the most profound teachings of Buddhism is the idea that suffering is a natural part of life. We cannot escape it, but we can change the way we respond to it. Meditation teaches us how to respond to suffering with awareness and compassion, rather than fear or resistance. By embracing our pain with a gentle heart, we find the strength to heal. When we meditate, we also deepen our understanding of impermanence. Everything in life is temporary. Our thoughts, emotions, and even our circumstances are constantly changing. Meditation helps us come to terms with this impermanence, teaching us to let go of attachment to things that are fleeting. When we stop clinging to things, we are free. We can enjoy life more fully, knowing that everything is temporary and that this moment is all we truly have. But meditation is not just about sitting quietly. It is a way of living. The practice extends beyond the cushion and into our daily lives. When we are mindful, we bring the same awareness to our everyday activities. Whether it is eating, walking, or talking, we begin to see the beauty in the simplest moments. In each breath, in each step, we find peace. Meditation teaches us to live with intention, to be fully present in whatever we do. As we continue to practice meditation, we begin to experience the benefits in all areas of our lives. We become less reactive and more centered. We respond to challenges with calmness instead of fear. We develop a deep sense of inner peace that is not shaken by external circumstances. No matter what happens in the world around us, we remain steady, like a mountain that cannot be moved by the wind. This is the power of meditation. It is a tool that helps us cultivate peace, mindfulness, and compassion in our lives. It helps us to stay happy in every situation, not by avoiding difficulties, but by changing the way we approach them. When we meditate, we train our minds to be present, to be aware, and to be kind. In this way, we discover that true happiness is not something that can be found outside of ourselves. It is something that resides within us, waiting to be uncovered. Meditation also allows us to tap into the deeper layers of our consciousness. In the quiet space of meditation, we may experience moments of clarity, insight, and even profound realization. These moments are like glimpses into the true nature of reality, beyond the illusions of the mind. They remind us that we are not separate from the world around us. We are interconnected with all beings. When we meditate, we remember our true nature, our boundless, loving, and peaceful nature. So, The next time you feel overwhelmed or stressed, remember that meditation is always available to you. You don't need any special tools or circumstances to meditate. All you need is a willingness to sit quietly and be present. Through meditation, you can cultivate the peace that you seek. In the stillness of your mind, you will find the happiness that is already there, waiting for you. Let us remember that meditation is a journey, not a destination. It is a lifelong practice of returning to the present moment over and over again. With each breath, we grow closer to our true nature. With each moment of stillness, we uncover more of the happiness that lies within. So, sit quietly, breathe deeply, and allow yourself to rest in the peace that is already there. This is the path to mental peace, the path to happiness in every situation.